Okay, I'm looking. Oh mein Gott.
45, das stimmt. 245?
Ja. Stop.
Wow, Berge, wow. Du hast es geschafft. Wow.
This was the time when I went to my wife, I quit my job, and I said, 6 months, baby. 6 months. How many of you have a power fantasy about being an orange? $700. 2 years. 700 wishlist. How many of you want to be a powerful orange? Hey, this is wrong. Let's double down. Yeah, that was so bad. And I told myself that if this version right here, we have the feedback button here, the wishlist button here, and this global skill tree, if this game cannot give me any wishlists and doesn't do well in Steam Next Fest, then I don't see a future. Okay, chat. So essentially the way this is gonna work, I'm gonna play a bunch of old games. But first, I started my game a very long time ago by making a Vulkan engine. Those of you who remember, essentially what I did was I followed this Vulkan tutorial. I followed this website right here, which is essentially the introduction to Vulkan. You can see a nice overview here where they explain the different steps. And then at the very end, when you go through all of these different, whatever you call them, tasks, at the end, and this goes into great detail and explains a lot about how graphics programming works. It's a lot of code because, you know, it's Vulkan. You know, it's just Vulkan. But it is very awesome to you know, go through this for the first time, because this helps a lot with understanding how the graphics card works and essentially how stuff is drawn, because everything essentially is a vertex, right? Even 2D games, they're all consisting of vertices, and then these build quads together and stuff like that. And so yeah, at the end of this tutorial, you're left with, let me see here, I think here, somewhat at the end, you're left with something like this, where it's a little bit more like multi-sampling. You're left with essentially just a nice looking image inside a window. And then going off of this, I essentially made a little game, a Pong clone. Looks terrible, right? I drew... This was essentially the first image I drew. And then I took some grass picture of the internet. And you can see here that in the console, I was tracking relative mouse movement events and stuff like that. Mouse movement event. That is taken. At the time, I was watching a lot of the Cherno on YouTube. That is taken from the Cherno, where he had like this, for those of you who watched it, no, but not many have probably. Like he described it as the different layers of an application. I don't know, the first layer might be the UI layer, and then underneath that you have the game layer, and then underneath that you have the platform layer, and whatever, right? And so each layer would decide whether to do something with an event or not, right? And so every single thing that the game could do like input into the window is an event that traverses down this layer stack. I mean, it's generic. It can work. I found it really complicated, but yeah, that's essentially how that worked. And then I took this game right here. Essentially, all you do is like you use WASD and then you move along and try to beat the other guy by, you know, it's like tactically moving this. Like, look, I can change direction of the ball and shit. I mean, yeah. So I've gotten a bit rusty. Essentially, that is the Gothic. Yeah, that is an optimistic first. Yeah. Those of you who know me know that I love Gothic, so I always named the windows Gothic. Gothic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. And yeah, so essentially this was the first time of me learning how to do anything. It has basic stuff like text rendering, drawing quads, drawing textures. And yeah, that was essentially the base for the very first version of my game, which essentially looked like this. And I gotta, you know, mute the sound because it's really loud. And obviously there is no, no sound options. But essentially what you could do here is move around with a character. And the enemies right here, they would loop in terms of waypoints. And when they collide with you, they would try to attack you, right? So that was the most basic thing of the tower defense games, where if you compare this with now, these are the enemies. They start attacking you when they get close to you. And if you're outside of their range, they do nothing, right? And you can see here that this was the very first time that I did pixel art, because these sprites, they are very blurry. And the reason why they are blurry is because I use linear filtering. For those of you who know what that is. It's like I didn't know what any of these terms meant at all. Linear filtering, point sampling, stuff like that. Made absolutely no sense to me. It looks really bad, yeah. And yes, that's essentially the very first version that I almost started streaming with. This was 2021 in October. I started off of this concept and started streaming, making the game on Twitch. I don't know if anyone has actually seen this, because back then I had like 1 or 2 viewers, barely anyone. So obviously not many will remember this at all. But that's essentially the very first version, and I was really proud because before then I could never really move with stuff, and it, you know, I gotta say, like, it functions really well. And this is all, by the way, this is running under Vulkan. Keep that in mind, right? So we can look at some of the code later, but you just need like 2,000 lines of code just to, you know, have some decent game. And so yeah, based on that little game, I started to obviously go and make the game better. And you can see here that I actually went ahead and took a look at the commits. In August 12, 2021, chat. This is the time. This is the date when all started. Good times, guys. Good times. That was times, chat. So long ago. There was pre-AI, true pre-AI. And you can see here that from August, everything in the beginning was just trying to get the game into the shape of a game. Essentially, I tried to build something like a framework that would allow me to make games. You know, working on Windows File I/O, error-free, almost error-free, removing dependency of game from renderer. Basically, and this is the stuff that people talk about when it comes to should you make a game or an engine. You're going to be working a lot on these different tasks that mean nothing to anyone that works in Unity, but you still have to do this. You also have to change comments. Yeah. Working on turning renderer age into a class, VK renderer, and all of this stuff is busy work that takes away from making the game. You can see here by September, I was still working on the renderer. right? And all of this stuff took so long to get going into a, let's say, decent... It's not even decent. It was terrible. Into somewhat of an... I mean, into a shape. Okay, let's call it a shape. Okay, it was something. Okay? Based on how much I could do at the time, right? And so basically that's what the game looked like. And I don't even think I can... Oh, actually I can resize the window. So you can see here that I can move, I can still move around, but I have different sprites. And I can also now spawn units, right? So, and I don't know why this flickers, by the way. Don't ask me, okay? So, it's an old version, right? And so this is also when I learned to do UI and text rendering. Take a look at all of these. And by the way, you think this is static? Look at that. The health bar. It goes up and down because I can improve it. Increase and decrease it. These are input fields. Oh yeah. Do you see that, chat? Oh yeah. Text rendering and input fields. Here, yeah. Look, this guy has 200 damage. He one-shots everyone. Very nice. Synchronization issue? Hey, it could be anything. Like, they... Look at this. They disappear too. I don't know what happens, you know. It's been a long time. But yeah, that's essentially somewhat of the very... I don't... Did I have a tactics menu here already? Let's see. T? No. Anyways, like... It is... yeah, it was a game. Let's say that. Looked terrible. And mind you, right? This, mind you, is like 3 months in. Imagine, guys, imagine you boot up Unity and 3 months later you have this. You would be ashamed, right? But that's essentially what you have to go through. If you make an engine, and especially in Vulkan, and you've never done this before, these circuits, for example, I had to create a shader to create these circles. And I gotta be honest, I think they look really nice. But stuff like this takes a long time. And then in Unity, you just have the circle checkbox. Right, chat? Right, chat? You just have the circle checkbox, and then you put the checkbox in there, and then you do your ticket, and it's like circle. And then you make it transparent, give it a different color, and you move on to the next task. 2 minutes. Oh, default sprite. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. So essentially, that was it. Nothing more to see here. You can... I guess I can move the waypoints, you know. Can move them, make them move here. And these are supposed to be the waypoints. But yeah, this, by the way, chat, this was the time when I went to my wife. I quit my job and I said, 6 months, baby. 6 months. You would have done the same, right, chat? I watched a lot of Handmade Hero and Jonathan Blow back in the day, and I was like, if these guys can do it, I can do it too, you know, because I have the experience. Oh, man. The ego, yeah. The ego. Anyways, hey, but it is how it is. Shortly after that, not even in 2020, we're still talking 2021 here, I started to actually improve the art in my game. That's when I used GIMP for the first time, and I had a mental breakdown, but at the same time, I also created something that looked like this right here. This was essentially the very first version that was my own art and pixel art at the same time. So essentially this right here was the idea that I now had enemies following waypoints, and I knew that I wanted to place units somewhere. So I needed to find a way to make, essentially, is it, are you spawning? Excuse me. I needed to find a way to easily make backgrounds And so then I decided, well, why not bake the backgrounds as like a simple sprite? That would be the most efficient, because I essentially just draw one quad for the background, and then I make the units placeable in some sort of area where they can be placed. And so that's what I did, but it looked terrible. And so I started learning pixel art. You could see right here. That is the first pixel art sprite that I ever drew. Does anyone remember this sprite actually? Yeah, it's supposed to be a cookie because it has these crumbs in here, the chocolate crumbs. And it's supposed to look cool because of the sunglasses, because sunglasses look cool. I do. How do you guys remember that? You guys are lying. There's no way you guys remember this. No way. Let me check real quick on why this the enemies don't spawn, because I think they should spawn here. It's fine if they don't. But essentially, that was the very first version with my own art. And then I started pivoting to pixel art. I knew that this didn't look good enough and I wanted a bit more. So that's when I started to get into art myself. So very early on in December of 2021, I started learning pixel art and improving the game. And this is the result. You know, it's like I have a little level editor right here. I have a couple of waypoints, you know, that you can move around. The enemies follow these waypoints. Very nice. Juicy. And yeah, then I can also change the color of these trees. Look at that. And since this is Vulcan, they were all following essentially the same material. If I change this tree right here, then all of the trees with the same material get changed their color. And I was really proud of this, because that was essentially the very first, my very first own pixel art map. And it actually does work. There's enemies running here. And I don't think I can place units yet, but yeah. And you can see here that I also started working on a little bit of UI. Added in, you know, some numbers and text. And by the way, this right here, the font that you see, I drew that font myself. The entire font is done by me. And it looks dementsprechend terrible. No, I drew it out of my... I didn't trace anything. I actually drew that all by myself. Yeah. Took a long time. I cannot recommend this at all. Don't do it, chat. You're wasting your time. And it looks bad in the end. Time well spent? What this guy say? No way, there's no way this... And by the way, now that I see this, right? If I look at the editor here, the shadow is completely wrong. The shadow is behind the tree. Like it's laying on the floor. You see that? Hey, it was the first tree I ever drew. Or the second tree. The first tree was worse. And yeah, there's also this cool little editor right here where I can add spawns to the level and then give them different numbers, sort them, and then, you know, let them run. Uh-oh. Yeah, anyways, looks nice, but I realized pretty quickly that this is not the way forward, because believe it or not, chat, drawing this map or the background with the road took me like 5 hours. 5 hours to draw a map background. And that was way too much work. And it looks terrible. It is heavily inspired by Stardew Valley Grass. How? Because I was bad. I was terrible. This is the first time I ever made pixel art. I've seen it. No, listen. I drew every single pixel myself, okay? I might have copied a couple pixels here for the grass. But the road... Let me tell you, the amount of time and effort I spent on the road was astronomical, okay? Because you have to make sure that it looks like grass and also add some shading. And I did a terrible job, so I had to redo this a bunch of times until I learned that how grass could potentially look like. But now taking a look at it, it doesn't even look like grass anymore. It looks like, I don't know. I mean, it does look a little like grass, yeah, if you squint your eyes, but bruh. So yeah, anyways, but you can see here, for those of you who know the editor in my game, this is essentially the very first version of the editor that I had in the game. I can't delete anything, but I can move stuff around, and you know how vital this was later down the line in the development. And I already had this 4 years ago, because even back then, being as terrible as I was with making games, I knew that this would be important, because using tiles to place down stuff was just not feasible at all. It took way too long. And just being able to move this stuff around super quickly is a godsend. I can heavily recommend this. Even in this state where it looks terrible, it is really good to be able to just, you know, place down some foliage or some other stuff and move them around. Type in chat how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how does this look? How is this a 3? 7? Okay, you're lying. Ah, okay, so if he is lying, he says 9. Yeah, you guys are lying. Okay, there's a bunch of liars in chat. I think this is at most a 1. At most. For the effort. 4? Hey, you push it, bruh. I will give it a second look. Hey, it's definitely not nothing. That's true, yeah. But this bar at the bottom, for example, terrible. This is still a... I think this was a GIMP bar. So terrible, really bad. Looks like a forum post from a very eager kid learning Game Maker. Yeah, something like that, right? But yeah, by this time I was making this game for about 5 months. 4 to 5 months. So, yeah. This is when I started to go, and in the next month, this is January 2021, this is when I improved, chat. What do you guys expect the next going to be, huh? What do you expect? Was this full time? Somewhat, yeah. Not much. Towers. That's the next thing. That is 1 month later. Let me tell you, chat, I was really proud of this. Oh yeah. That is January 2022. 4 years ago. Stardew palette. My own color palette. Stardew Valley inspired. I drew every single thing myself, though. I drew everything myself. I did not take anything from him. The only thing that I tried to learn from him was how are these leaves shaded and drawn, the shape of these leaves, stuff like that. Yeah, it was like Stardew Valley, yeah. And essentially what you could do here, this was the very first version where is he placed here though? You shouldn't be placed here. You should be here. They could attack me, I could attack them back. And we had essentially the version that you have today, where the enemies can be blocked. But the limitation here is that you can only place units on certain spots on the map. This was actually a really good version that I should have continued. And what I missed the most from this is the placement slots. The positions on the map where you can place your units and... basically make sure that, what is it called? You can place your units and they can only go there, essentially. And then you have to make sure, or you have to think about, well, where do I place my towers? Where's the best way? Because you can see here, some of them go to the right, some of them go to the left. If you place them, this guy here, then he might have too many that he needs to block and he won't be able to survive. Stuff like that. And I think I also had a healer, but I don't know if the healer was able to heal yet. But yeah, that was essentially the very first level that I did. Why does everything have teeth? Because the only thing... Yeah, then thank you for playing, right? This, by the way... I mean, it's not a minimum viable product at this point. But let's say... Because you don't have upgrades for the towers. But this was essentially the very first game that I made. One level... Let's see, can you actually heal? No, so this one doesn't even heal. Yeah, like he does heal. Wait, do I have a tactics menu? Oh, I see. We have a tactics menu. And then over here, you have a health threshold. Wait, health threshold, heal ability. When that's essentially what I was trying to do back then. I wanted to be able to program my party to be able to do all of these different things that you could do in Dragon Age Origins. Like, for example, oh, one guy is stunned. Use the stun potion or the powder to cure the stun effect on him so he can keep going. Or another guy is chilled. Use the cleanse ability on him whenever some ally in your range is chilled. And so I wanted to have like all of these different, how do you call them? Conditions where the action would be something that you do based on the condition. But this menu was really complicated. This was the very first version of it, but it turned out to be way too difficult for anyone to understand. Did you put this on Edge? This, yes, but a more advanced version. Because this, like, you do something wrong here, bro, the entire game breaks. This is also when I started to learn about Bezier curves. You see right here, like the paths are no longer just dots. They are now actual curves. The enemies follow along to make this a little smoother. And that was a really good decision. I can heavily recommend Bezier curves for any pathing in tower defense games. I still use this to this day. And I had this 4 years ago, which is like insane, chat. Like, this was 4 years ago, chat. 4 years ago, I already had, yeah, basically the enemy pathing locked in. 2022, yeah. Really cool. So yeah, but other than this, there was not much else. I didn't have any upgrades. I could literally just place towers. That's all I could do. Nothing more. And there was no indication, like, for example, you have these unit points at the bottom here. There's no indication at all on whether I could place a unit or not. They don't gray out, nothing. And then you also have speed up as well, 2 times speed. And then, yeah, you can just win. That's essentially the very first version. Very proud of this. And I'm happy that I have this now. Back to show people whenever they ask, right? And again, the editor is still the same, right? You can move things around. I think you can... No, you can still not delete stuff, which kind of sucks. And for those of you who are wondering, how does this work? I think this is a good time where I could show some code because it's really bad. So this is essentially the code for this game that we saw here. And I wanted to show you how I had set up the game. One thing that most people want to see is the Vulkan renderer. The Vulkan renderer was, and don't pay attention to these issues here. This is just the IDE. But the Vulkan renderer was just... There was so much stuff going on where you literally have to calculate sizes for textures, and you have to do so much stuff. And all of these functions, right? VK copy to buffer. I had to write these. Right? You do a mem copy to a staging buffer, then you do a memory range, you flush that range, you do a copy command, you allocate a buffer to record commands, then you begin a command. It is so much freaking work just to... And by the way, all of this work, command copy, and then a memory barrier, then you do a pipeline barrier. Oh my god. And all of this stuff just to upload data to a texture. GL texture image. One command, all of this stuff. You need to know all of these bits. You need to know Q families. And you need to know this, these masks here, access you want to read. It is, bro, it is insane. And then you basically, you also have a fence. Bro. So all of this stuff, right, to just upload to a buffer. It was insanity, I'm telling you guys. And so I had to abstract these out into functions, but I also had to learn about this. And this is, by the way, guys, the time you spend learning that does not make you a better game developer. All you do is just write some dumbass code that no one is ever going to see ever again in their lives, okay? And especially not a single gamer is going to see that. But yeah, the entire renderer is an easy, 2,000 lines of code or something like that. It's a couple of lines of code, you know, it's like namespace cakes, yeah. See, guys, I told you I was using namespaces, okay? Yeah. I was using namespaces, okay? Just letting you know that. This is when I already had the entity struct. But I can tell you that I also had classes. Yeah. I don't remember which one it was, but I definitely had some classes. Nothing wrong. Only 2000 minus 3.5k already. Well, that's 2k in the renderer with abstracted functions, you know? So, for example, vk create is another big function thing. That is also another 400. And then we have vk initializers, which is another 600. And then we have shader util, which is not that large. It's another 2. It's just, vk util or utility functions for Vulkan. Yeah. 300. Yeah, anyways. Bruh. So I don't want to go too much into the code. Let me just tell you that I'm surprised the games still work. Let's say that. So now that I have the executables, let's hope that this will stay the same forever. But yeah, still proud of this result. This was 2022, January. And I changed drawing backgrounds by hand to essentially having a tile set. This is the tile set, my very first tile set ever made. And it was heavily inspired by Stardew Valley because I really liked the way the game looked. Or I still like the game way Stardew Valley looks. So obviously it was inspired by him. Anyways, so starting from this point here, I knew I had something like a game. This was essentially the very first game that I had. And I wanted to make a prototype out of this, where I get everything into this, so the gameplay loop is visible. And that's essentially the next thing that I did. Looks pretty much the same in the main menu, but we now have different buttons. And by the way, this is, again, about a month later, so February 2022. And you could see here that I had some options, finally. Very nice, right, chat? Options, the very important, most important thing. And here's something that was insanely confusing at the time. You can see all of the different classes that are still in the game to this day. Mage, Defender, Healer, Archer and Healer. But I had this weird thing where you build a team like in, what is it called? Like in Darkest Dungeon. You have to click this hero and then put him into your team. Otherwise, you cannot spawn him in the level. That was really bad. So if I put him out of the team and I play a map, then he's not in the list of heroes that... Actually, can I make this big? Oh! F11? Let's just not look at that, okay? Let's look at the editor. The editor is a bit broken, you know, in this version. And so, yeah, I essentially went ahead and tried to make a very first game or gameplay loop. You can see here that there's skills. The UI looks a lot better now. And yeah, you can play. And then this guy has arrows shooting. Finally, you know, this, by the way, this arrow curve that you see here took me a week to get right. This right here. It's crazy. You have flying enemies as well. And yeah, this essentially the first or the important thing here is that the units can now level up. The higher level they are, the more damage they do and the more health they have as well. We can see here that when we win this level, they get a level up. And then when you click this level up, you could choose a skill. And by this point, I only had 2 skills in the game. One of them was, I think he gets gold when he attacks. Like the description is wrong, but this was gold when you attack. And then this one was attack speed with a cooldown of 60 seconds. Essentially, from the very beginning, I wanted to have these abilities in the game that are now the abilities on the items. And I wanted to be able to put the abilities on these units. That was the idea. And then, yeah, this level was not completed yet. That was level 2. I didn't design this at this point at all. And I think you can't even put anything here. So yeah, there's nothing much to show here. But yeah, I was starting to essentially build what would be the very first demo version that I would upload to itch.io. At this point, I was talking about my very first demo version. And I think looking back now, would you guys say that when you start your first game and 6 months later you upload a demo version to itch.io, would you say that's fast? Keep in mind the very first game. Like, I never had made any games before this. Slow? Yes? Very? It's fast? Keep in mind that at this point, we are talking February 2022. And the next step is the itch.io demo, the very first version on itch.io. I think the level up screen is cool. Yeah, I like the level up screen a lot too. That was one of my favorite screens. Even if you use an engine, that would be fast. By the way, oh, this is again different materials, isn't it? Look at that. Blue tree chat. Ooh. I had definitely improved a little bit in pixel art, but you can still see that the problem that I saw at this point with my game was that it was a little too convoluted. For example, here, when I place a defender, you couldn't really tell much what's going on, right? It was just a lot of mumbo jumbo. There was no clear separation between what's happening. A big reason for that is also because the enemies were the same color, but there was no real separation between the enemies and the units. And so it just looked like everything was the same. But one big problem that I had at this point is that all the assets I had were DDS files. Every single sprite you see in the game was an allocation in Vulkan, a texture in Vulkan. Because at this point in time, I didn't know what a texture atlas was. I have never heard about that at all. And for 6 months, I just made new images in Sprite. I would turn these images into DDS files, and then I would load these DDS files into the engine. And the bad part about this was even worse than you think. Now, obviously, I just have a texture atlas. And the sprite in the game, I draw a portion in the texture atlas. This one is 64 by 64. So I draw at an offset and a size of 64 by 64. I supply that to the shader. In that Vulkan engine that I built this terrible asset system that looked something like this. In source, I had assets and an asset builder, which would take the DDS files and then write them into an asset pack. And then the asset pack was essentially, let's see, get asset, where's the implementation for that? It would fill in this structure right here, where an asset was just size and a byte offset and a type. And so I would just write this giant asset file every time I added a new sprite into this asset pack binary file. I would open the binary file. I would read 120 bytes. I would get that back into the renderer, and then I would upload that to the GPU. It was just insanity, bro. Like, for anyone that understood what I just said, that was terrible. 120 bytes, it was an example, bro. It was an example. Hey, I don't know how much. Let's see, the background DDS file, how much is it? 500 kilobytes. So yeah, and I would do this for all of these images. And essentially, for those of you who understand this, I should not have done this at all. I should have just built an asset, a texture atlas. One big sprite with all of the stuff inside of it. With all of the pictures inside of it. And then do one allocation. You keep the star on the wrong side. No, you're wrong. The star is on the left. Always. Oh, here. Yeah, no, that is correct. That's supposed to be here. You're correct. Yeah. So, yeah, no, that was... I changed my stance on this. That was old Cakez, okay? He was wrong. Yeah. So, yeah, essentially, that was then from here on... I wanted to really build the first demo version. And people told me, I didn't know about it at the time, but people told me that itch.io is a great place to upload demo versions. And so I started working towards that next. This next version right here. I went ahead and made the menu look a little bit cooler. I drew a couple more trees. Made it seem like... and this was essentially the same idea that the world map is in now. You start out with your nice little base to the bottom, and then you get to this evil castle on the top right. That gradient background is sexy. Yeah, that was a sprite. I didn't do anything. So yeah, that's essentially when I started implementing different levels. And so you can see here that the reason why I took this as the next thing to look at is because this right here should have been my minimum viable product. For those of you who don't know what that means, is you build a gameplay loop and you make 1, 2, maybe a couple levels, not too many, and you try to get the idea across with as little effort as possible. Then you get the game into the hands of players and you ask them for feedback and you look at how long they play. That right here should have been the minimum viable product. Let me see if I do have F11. I don't. I don't have toggle full screen at all. So we have to stick with this. But you can see here that I already have different types of maps. And I still stuck to the same idea of placing units into only certain spots. But I reworked the UI. You can see here that I started learning a lot more about pixel art. I took away the bottom bar because it was taking away too much space. If you think about it, we can compare these two. The previous version right here, when you play, the bar at the bottom, there's not enough vertical space to fit this into the screen at all. That's why I had this button to get rid of it, because it would take away too much space. And so I started learning. This was essentially the time when I got into learning how to do UI. And by the way, that's still something that I'm learning a lot. But the very first change that I did was, okay, well, we need to put the bar to the right, because if we don't, then to the bottom we don't have enough space. I can't really design levels. And yeah, that was essentially the minimum viable product that I should have put onto itch.io, which, by the way, at this point, we are talking April. So 1 month before May, April 2024. That is not even a year in development, and I'm already ready. At this point, I'm already ready to upload this to itch.io. And I should have done it, but I didn't. Right? I did not upload it at this time, but I should have. Because you can see here that we have abilities, killing units awards a unit point. This unit costs 50% less. And then he also has lighting damage on hit, which is a cooldown. But you can see here that I did some awful decisions. Using an ability cost money. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think that's dumb. So yeah, anyways, that should have been the minimum viable product. And essentially the way the game worked was like this. You place a unit down, then you obviously wait for the enemies to come. And while you wait, you get money. And then when you have enough money, you can place another unit. And then, you know, this was the cool part about the game. The tactics menu meant that the units could activate their abilities on their own based on certain conditions. Like, for example, you can see here that this gives me 2 shots. He can attack 2 units at the same time. And that was the cool part about the game that I really wanted to get across, which is powerful upgrades, much more so than let's say in other games where and you know, like firing 2 arrows isn't the most crazy idea, but you can see here that it just crashed. It just crashed. No, I mean, obviously this is just you know, some happens, you know, because this was not released anywhere, so obviously it's gonna crash, of course. Yeah, but you get the idea. And then the same thing was like, how did you get these abilities? The idea was actually, can I click this? Okay, I can click this. Good to know. This guy here. Oh my god, did you see that? He just attacked everyone. Really cool. Very nice. Yeah, so you already saw the power in, you know, what was possible here. Too easy. Too easy, chat. Too good at my own game. Very nice. Let's place this guy here. Let's place the mage here. Oh my god, this guy. Damn, look at them explosions, bruh. Holy, they have no chance. Oh, do I already have transparency in the game? I think I do. Very nice. Damn. I don't know what these numbers mean. I think this is just their IDs, attack IDs or something. I wonder how long this goes. How much did I script here? We done? Yeah. And so basically that was the same, right? Once you beat a mission, you can then level up. And at this point, I had a lot more skills to choose from. You could always reinvest if you wanted to. So for example, if I accidentally got increased damage, I could reset and say, no, actually I wanted to have radius. But only in this menu. Once you confirm, it's locked in. And yeah, that was essentially the idea. And I think it wasn't too bad. This could have been, if implemented correctly, again, the biggest problem of this version is not that you can add abilities to units. It's more so how you do it. You have all of these menus and there's no clear connection between unit and abilities. And once a unit has an ability, it's not obvious where that ability is. You can't really see it very well. And so at this point, I was struggling a lot with visualizing the different gameplay mechanics and making it clear to the player what they can do and how they can achieve this. Because, for example, certain abilities would only unlock, let's see, yeah, certain abilities or skills would only unlock if you already had trained one. You can see here that once you get this cost reduction, you can also get killing units awards a unit point, right? And so these things would essentially trigger new abilities that could be unlocked. You know, for example, once you get cold damage, you can get the freeze chance, and then you can get the ice wave, right? And you don't have ice wave if you don't get it. So there's like this hidden mechanic of uncovering certain abilities. That's essentially what I wanted to do, which I think that was really cool. I had a lot of fun with that. However, yeah, the players did not understand that too much. More content than 10 GTD. No, because we get to it, but this version had a lot of issues. But yeah, 3 levels. That's what I should have put on itch. But I went a step further, and so this is then almost a full year after I started working on 10 GTD. This is the version that I put on itch.io. And so essentially what I did was I made a page on itch.io. I put up a couple of screenshots and then uploaded it. The very first version was June 2022. Right here. And then a lot of you guys, I'll buy the game on Steam. I'm a big TD lover. And a lot of you guys, oh, this guy got purged. Interesting. Thank you, will do. Finally getting back to gameplay program after giant rework. Feels good, man. Yeah. There were a lot of reworks. New demos also. Listen, look at this, guys. Programmer Jeff. Wasn't he in chat just a second ago? Cheeseburgers, free time dev, Meo, cute muff. Ace and Riz 2? So yeah, these were all the people that would then, you know, help me test the game. And unfortunately, I did not get any feedback outside of this, right? So making this itch page was very important, but it didn't help too much because there weren't enough people interested in the game from itch in general to write or give me any feedback. And the biggest problem with this version is that there was nothing inside of here. There was a call to action. So, okay, at this point I didn't have a Steam page, but I should have at least have some sort of, if you want to support me, provide me some feedback in the comments. Or please let me know about what you think about the game in this Google Sheets feedback form. And then these would be very obvious buttons, right? There's nothing obvious about this at all. It's just a game, right? Which obviously, when it's your first game, you don't know that you should do that. But this should have been in here. And so yeah, essentially this is what it looked like. I went ahead again and reworked the background. You can see here that the grass changed again to a different tile set this time, because I realized that there was not much clear visual separation. But what I did introduce with this, unfortunately, was what people call visual clutter. Essentially, there's too many pixels on the screen that want your attention, and too little pixels on the units, even with the outline, so that when you zoom out, right, and I hope I can do this, when you zoom out, it is difficult to tell what's going on. Still possible, but difficult to tell, because there's so much detail, right? Great to see you. Hey, Cakez, my man, good morning. And yeah, so essentially what I did here is I changed the way you level up. Now you can level up inside the game. The game does not pause, and then you choose, which is terrible but design, by the way. The game, when you level up, the game should pause, okay? You should not be, having to fiddle around with some level up menu while you can't even see the freaking game, bruh. Terrible. Hey, Rafi, thank you very much for subscribing. Look at the white HP bar. Yeah, animated HP bar. Yeah. I was streaming and people told me to do it. And mind you, right? All of this was done on stream. This was all done live. I barely did any coding outside the game, outside the stream at that point, because I was doing everything on the stream and recorded it. And so, yeah. This was all still the same. But this was essentially the very first version where people gave me feedback. And the coolest map, in my opinion, that I have ever built was this map right here. Why do I not have any heroes? What the hell? What the hell? Why do I not have any heroes? Oh, choose your team, because this is then the last mission and you need to build a team of level 1 heroes. This was the last mission. Actually, very interesting. Let's see. Right, and the cool part, again, was these placeable slots, right? I can only place this guy in one of these slots, and depending on where I place him, he can reach certain areas or cannot. Like, for example, I think this... Nah, this is a good spot. Oh, God. I can only place 1 unit. Are you kidding me? I can only place 1 unit? Who coded this? Okay, let's see. Terrible. Terrible. Hello. Kill him. Okay, so we need to immediately place another. Otherwise, we lose. There's no way. Yeah, you can see here already that I had issues with these trees, right? I did not make this tree transparent when there was a unit behind him. And now the unit is covering, or the tree is covering the unit. Let's see here, but you can level up. Oh, you needed to level up? You can see this here, right? Yeah. You can only level up with this button. And level up meant that you get more powerful. So, for example, I level up, then I can get an ability, and the stupid game doesn't pause. The stupid game doesn't pause. Anyways, a payday. And then what you had to do to activate it is you had to click the Q button. Okay? You needed to click the Q button because it wouldn't actually... It would not activate the ability otherwise. Watch. And to get around this, I added this in this terribly complicated tactics menu. Oops, not this one. Which, for every single one of those, you could add in your rule. And so, for example, this guy has this payday thing, right? What you would do then is, like, why is the fucking camera? Like, give me 1 second. It makes me so fucking mad. Configure. Why am I a glowing thing, man? Why do I glow? Huh? Okay. Okay. We good. We good, chat. We're good. We're good. Nice. Anyways, let's get back to this. What you had to do here is you had to define a rule so he would actually use this ability. So you would say, well, the target is myself. The condition is, well, I always want to use it off cooldown. And what is the action? I use this ability. So yeah, and people never understood this at all. That was so complicated. Okay, so now he would use this ability automatically and I could focus on leveling up. And every time I level up, these guys get stronger, right? So I would want to build one guy that is overpowered. Like, for example, I need one with cold damage and I want him to do freezing hits. Oh, shit. And then now he's not using it. Of course, right? He's not using it. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Wait. Uh-oh. No. 1 sec. Bro, I don't have time. 1 sec. Block chance. Wait, you block more. And you get block chance. And you get a new ability. No, you don't? Okay, block chance. Bro, 200. You kidding me, right? I need to beat 200? Bro, the game was hard back then. I made the game difficult, bro. What's going on? Okay, one more. Wait. Tactics menu, right? This guy right here. New rule. Self. Action of cooldown. I want you to use this ability always. Nice. So see now he's freezing the units. You see that? Ha! Cool. And now you get attack speed. Wait, you get range. Hey! He's getting attacked. No! Why are you getting attacked, bruh? See, like, that's bad too. Regeneration. Okay, he's healing. Wait, I need a healer. Uh-oh. One sec. Radius. Yes. So now he's getting healed. Awesome. Yeah. Good. One more healer here. And you also get range. Very nice. Yeah. Uh-oh. Stop. Don't. No. Kill them. Uh-oh. Wait. Wait, this unit costs less? Oh no, I'm so stupid. Ooh, can I win? There's only 80 left. Ah. The big problem with this version essentially was that it was too difficult or too confusing on how to actually get money and on how to and on how to build up a party properly. And then this tactics menu was just crazy. And so I learned all of this by watching people play and by them giving me feedback. And by playing myself. Obviously, it's a cool idea to be able to have all of these rules and conditions. You know, health below 25, 50. This is directly taken from attack by more than 1, attack by more than 2. All of this stuff worked. But it was incredibly difficult to set up. And totally unfeasible for... This is not a tower defense at this point. This is a party manager, right? And for a tower defense, what you want to be focusing on is the upgrades more. And you should not have to... So for example, give you an example. If I level this guy up, and then I give him this ability, right? To get an ability in my game, or in this game, the actions required to get an upgrade that works all the time, let's count, okay? Let us count the actions required for this, okay? Let me actually use this. First, you have your unit. Then you click the upgrade button. Then you click another upgrade button. That's 2 actions. Then you click a third upgrade button. Then you click a 4th button. Now you search for the unit in question, which is another action, which takes a lot of time. 5 actions already. Then you click another button, 6. Now you check the conditions. At this point, you're already on the moon, based on how much knowledge you need to have. You find the right action in question, which is at the very bottom of the list. 8, 9, let's say 9 actions. And then you click the action to use, which is 10 actions. And then you exit out of the menu. So you could say about 12 actions are required to put a banana farm and click the banana farm upgrade button, which is 1 or 2 actions. I basically made a banana farm here with 12 actions. And that is something that I learned by doing it this way and realizing how terrible this is, and then comparing this to Bloons, Kingdom Rush. Though I have to say that upgrading these guys and being able to choose different abilities is the cool part. However, what I finally settled on, the items are a much cooler way of giving them these buffs than this menu is right here, for example. It is the same idea, but it is much better implemented in the current version of the game that I have. And I want to highlight that this was very important to get out, because with the feedback I was able to make the game better. And what happens next is essentially a preparation for Steam. And this was hard, man. If anyone, by the way, if anyone wants to play this, I will have to see how I can get this online. There you go. That was the version that I uploaded to itch.io. TangentTD version 1.1, guys. 2022. What was in that iffy commit? Where's the iffy commit? Oh, the iffy commit will come up. I don't know what that iffy commit was. I think he was angry. He was angry at me. Or I was angry at iffy. Anyways, so yeah, this was the version that I uploaded to itch.io, and right after the commit, you could see here that I did a lot of commits that changed the game. Before this, I wasn't really sure what to do, and I was working on whatever. But right after this, you can see here also the dates, right? It's almost every day multiple commits, and the time between those was very little in between, because now I knew what to work on and how to make the game better. The game was still terrible, but it was getting better, and I was making good updates that I would then upload to itch.io again. And yeah, so this was essentially the precursor to the Steam demo. And that took me all the way until the end of the year. Like from August till the end of the year. You can see here that I reworked a lot of stuff. Then I did signed distance fields font rendering. I did more sprite stuff. I did a lot of reworks and stuff like that. Decoupled, blah, 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 blah. Wrote new systems. And then worked on adding, on releasing my very first demo version, which took half a year, essentially. And this one, somewhere here, is where that happened. I think it was this, but we can also see this right here in the very beginning. This was the release of my demo, December 18, but I think this was a private demo. This was private. And then in January 28 is when I think the stream played it. You guys played it. This was, I think, back then I was streaming to, as far as I remember, I think it was 50 viewers, 40 or 50 viewers. And let's see, this is the version that I built then. I had essentially replaced the entire main menu again with a new main menu, and this one would stay for a while. I learned a lot more about pixel art. You can see here all of those trees and stuff like that. I did draw that myself. I redid trees a lot of times, and I think I did a really good job with these trees. This one looks awesome. This one and this one too. Yeah, they're very nice. I'm very proud of these. It took a lot of time to make them. But yeah, because I wanted to have a unique, let's say a unique game. I didn't just want to have a copy of Stardew Valley. Gothic 100% influenced this. Yeah. Looks like an RPG screen. Yeah, it was. And so, yeah, that was essentially the very first version. Oh, I see. No, actually, this was not the Steam version. Here's something... this version, right? Looks good. Has different levels. You know, I redesigned the backgrounds again to look more like Stardew Valley and to have a bit of a cleaner road. I also added in lights at this point. And it had these placement slots still. For some reason, this version here, I redesigned the game so that you don't have placement slots. I removed those for some reason. And I don't know why. Actually, why are you using this, bro? Were you using this? Were you using this? Huh? Still had the, you know, the thing. Oh god, I lose. I lose? What? How? And still, skills costing money. I don't know why I did that. Like, do you guys remember why I made skills cost money? That makes absolutely no sense. It's so bad. Like, he's using money to activate an ability. That should just be a cooldown. I feel like I wanted to have a cost to this, but it makes no sense. Because, like, huh? You can see here that we still had the same skill menu. But the UI is just terrible. Really badly done. And for some reason, what I did here was I had this game and it worked. I removed the placement slots from the game for some reason. Oh, this guy's generating money. Uh-oh. 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 One sec. This? Kill him. Oh, he just one-shot me. Oh, of course. Yeah, great. Okay, so yeah, great game design. I can't even beat the level and I have no chance of ever beating it. Awesome. Really good stuff. Yeah, very nice. Good idea. Yeah. This guy knows how to make games. Very nice. Yeah. Skills cost money. Everything costs money. You get no money, no units, nothing. Awesome. What was the dev thinking? Yeah, real dumb. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're using this ability which costs $10. Yay! How about you don't? Huh? How about you don't use that? Thank you. How about no? Bro, that's insane, man. Okay, so I need to generate as much money as possible. Oh my god, this guy's using abilities too. And they also cost money. You can't be serious. And you can level them up for money too. You cannot be serious. And watch this. This guy gets close and one-shots me. Or not? Okay, he does not. Can you heal? Oh my god, heal him. Bruh. Generate money too. Alright, we have 60 money, chat. We lost. We can't beat this guy. He has too much life. There's no way we can beat him. Unless I get range, maybe? Okay, I got range now. Maybe I activate those rules again. He's just gonna one-shot me. 100%. Because he's too strong. Ah! Ooh! Okay, we lost. There's just no way we can win. Bro, that's insane. How did I ever beat this level? What? Oh, I can't beat him. I need to burn him. You call it this stuff, man. You're getting it, Jonathan. Yeah, and you get nothing, right? So if you lose, that's a big arm. Yeah. There's a huge arm. If you lose, you get nothing. All you can do is just try again. Very nice. But yeah, I think... and I wanted to say again, like, I did something here. That was essentially in November 2022. So about 2 weeks before the release of my game on Steam, I changed these placement slots away. So basically I made it so that you can place units everywhere, which means instead of only being able to place units on these slots, you could now place them everywhere. Meaning, I can't place this guy on grass. I can place him on the road, but I don't have money again. One second, I don't have money again. This is the Steam version. The very first version on Steam that I uploaded. You can see that I changed the grass yet again. And I made it so that you can place units everywhere for some reason. So I can stack them together if I wanted to. And then I also, for some reason... Bloons did it freeform, and it's a popular game, so it must be better. Yeah, I think I was heavily influenced by Bloons. And without feedback, I would just go ahead and change stuff away before actually getting player feedback. So you can see this right here, where somewhere I removed the old team selection, and then there was also a commit, I think, where I removed the vampire survivors right before releasing my game on Steam. And I think I should have at least stuck with the placement slots. And then you can see here that I made abilities, instead of costing money, they now costed energy. And you can see that over time, we went from choosing abilities, and they can be activated with money or with unit. No, actually, the abilities were free. They just had a cooldown. So we started with abilities that had a cooldown. Then we had abilities that cost money, dollars. And now we have abilities that cost energy. And the way you get energy is by attacking. It's this red bar to the left here that this guy has. Like, he shoots and he gets a little energy every hit. Barely any energy. He gets barely 0.1% energy or something per hit. Yeah, and this is the version that the guy played on the infamous YouTube video, which, let me find that YouTube. I watched this before. Yeah, there was this guy right here. That was so bad.
Okay, hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Russo, and I'm not really hearing any volume right now, so we're going to be playing, well, Cakez TD, and as you guys know, I love tower defense games, and this is just a demo. The full version has yet to have an announcement.
That was, guys, that was 3 years ago. That was 3 years ago. This guy, played my game.
Developer and publisher.
He figured out how to play the map, and then watch what happens. You need to look at this with speed set to 0.5, otherwise you will miss it. He clicks the unit, and it's placing the unit behind the bar. Watch. He's clicking here, and it's placing the unit behind the bar. Watch. Boom. You see it behind the bar? Proper UI management, guys. Proper UI collision detection. Very nice. GG, yeah, GG's.
I have no money.
And you get no money. You can place 1 unit. You have no money at all.
I lost. What is going on?
He lost, yeah. His comments? Yeah, and so... he was so mad playing this game.
I didn't click there. That's the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh wow, you can barely hear anything in here.
Okay, restart. Again. He placed it again.
I didn't click there. Okay, let's Can we get to main menu now? Okay, so there's definitely a glitch on that for sure.
It was so bad.
Yeah.
It takes him some time. Uh-huh. Yeah, it does take him some time.
Again, it just clicked.
By the way, that's why I only had 6 minutes medium playtime on Steam. People were quitting in the first minute. I had 6 minutes, chat. And yeah.
Wow, there we go.
This guy was so annoyed, man. It's just insane. He was so angry. Yeah, so let me tell you guys, the change from fixed positions to positioning everywhere was really bad, especially with the UI. Anyways, so I put this game on Steam. I made the Steam page and I uploaded the game immediately.
So ridiculous. Alright, well, this is just a demo, so...
This guy has the medium playtime that I had on Steam anyways. 6 minutes, yeah. He's right in the middle.
Always good to know. So you can put things in the path. That's the purpose of it, I guess. It's to slow them down other than the size, which is not typical for these type of things.
So yeah, I think the change away from placement slots to placing units everywhere created so many problems for me that I should have never done it. I regret this decision the most, but I can now also see why people in TNGTD clump up units and build some really cool dev balls. Though, if I had placement slots where it restricts your positionings and you can't place units everywhere, then you have to think a lot more. You can't just put everything in one thing, right? You have to think. And that makes the game, in my opinion, better than what I had. Like this right here, right? The same thing. But you can't, like, listen, I click here, nothing happens. You can only place him here or here. You can't really make a mistake. Well, you can make a mistake. You can place him here, right? I don't give you enough money, which is terrible. But you can't really make a mistake when I tell you where to place him in this, because, yeah, I mean, it's predefined, right? Bro, this is insane. How you losing, bruh? How you losing? Here. Right, and so then now you're basically learning how to place the units, and this placement slot should have been here, but yeah. I have no. Yeah, I get it. Like, there's so many people that are playing my game right now because you can place the units everywhere. I understand that, right? However, what I should have done here with this version, And this goes a little deeper. This is not the final version on Steam that I ended up with, but this was the first version on Steam. What I should have done here is I take this version and I release the game with this. I make some adjustments to the abilities so that you don't have the tactics menu. I remove that and I release the game, right? You decide which abilities you can get, right? For example, you get a new ability here. Let's say this guy gets Ice Wave. Now he has Ice Wave, and then you, I don't know, you have these 4. Maybe you level up Payday 1 level, so now you get 0.9 gold per second. And then I move on. I should have actually done a second game. I should have taken this, which had enough levels to, I don't know, cost $5. I think $5 for this plus endless mode should have been great. Because I made so many mistakes here that basically from this point onward, we are talking January 2023. I spent 2 years getting another demo out. 2 years. That's how long it took to go from this.
Now that it finally worked, this is actually not too bad. Can we speed this up?
Yes, we can speed this up. And now watch what happens. He plays 2 defenders, guys. Watch what happens.
I can only buy 2 heroes.
Yeah. And now this guy just runs past him. It's over, bro. It's over. It's over.
Alright, so there's no explanation.
This guy's... he's broken. I broke his spirit, chat. And the font is so bad.
Alright, so we lost again, okay.
He's almost rage quitting.
I wish there was better explanation on these things.
It used to work with a grid. It used to work with certain spots only, yeah. Not even a grid. Just certain spots. I decide where these spots are, essentially. The way this used to work was like this. In a map, like this for example, I could go into the editor and then I could move these placement slots, and I could say that this placement slot right here is... so can I actually see? Oh, I think I had to have hotkeys. I can't even see that. I can't even see it. But essentially hotkeys for setting this placement slot to a ranged placement slot or to a melee placement slot. But I was very stingy with gold. You can see here I only have 10 gold. I can only place 1 unit. That is something that, looking back now, was so bad. Why can you only place 1? Tower defense is all about setting up your defenses in multiple locations. When you can only place 1 unit and then you have no money, it's so bad. I couldn't even place the ranger because I didn't have enough money. It's crazy. But yeah, essentially this guy got past the level then. Then he started the next level and he got butt fucked. He lost all the time in this level. Again, because he places the units in terrible locations, because he can place them everywhere, and then these flying units just fly into the exit. Because he placed a ranger.
So you can't buy any more heroes?
Yeah, and you can't buy heroes anymore.
Okay. So once they die, you can't buy any more.
Yeah, and that was also bad. Once your units were dead, they were dead forever. You couldn't get more, which was bad. And then he rage quit. Let's see the comments. Just wanted to let you know the video was super helpful for the developer back then. Oh, yeah. Who was? My man. Yeah, thank you. He realized how dogshit the drag and drop issue was for the new players, and he fully reworked the game from the ground up. Super cool, my man. Big W's. Big W's. Is that all the comments? Yeah, that was all the comments. Yeah, so not a good time, chat. So that was around this time right here. from the very beginning of the game, you could see here that for a long time, no one really cared about my game because it was terrible. So yeah, that was this version. And what I then took from this is that I had so many issues in the game that I needed to do something, and I tried to make the game a little better. And so I went ahead and improved the design a little bit. And I guess I was playing Darkest Dungeon too much, because now we are going from tower defense, roguelike, and we enter Darkest Dungeon territory. I went away from my original idea of placing units in certain spots and they get attacked. They still get attacked, but now we are using equipment and names. Look. Uh-oh, error message. Test error message. Yeah, that's fine. Uh-oh. Never mind. One sec. Uh-oh. Gotta be careful here, okay? Let's see. How can I just test? I see. Okay. So you can still do it. Okay. Null exception. Here you go. You could rename units, and the new addition was that you can find items and equip your units with items. That was basically the precursor for the game that we have now. You see all of those items, and I gotta be honest with you, this is the game that I should have sold. This was February 2023. So 2 months later, after this version on YouTube that we just looked at, 2 months later after this version, I had a new version that was entirely redesigned, or that entirely redesigned how the game worked, but much cleaner. This is something I should have actually sold, because this version actually was quite fun. You could put items on units like this, give them trinkets, fully equip them, and then you can level them up permanently. So this guy's level 10 now. They get skill points, and then choosing an ability. This was terrible. This should have been done differently, right? How you choose. This was I was playing Vampire Survivors, I guess, at that point, because we now have a new way of getting skills, which is the Vampire Survivors way of getting skills, I guess. This should have been done a lot better, but you could now build your own characters based on what you want. So, for example, I want this guy to be, I guess, a tank. So he's going to block units. And defense would be nice. Iron Skin, for example, right? And then you just level up all of those different things. Poison Cloud. And then you run out of skill points. This was the version that I should have sold for a long time. And then moved on to another game, because this looks really good. It was very well implemented. Well, this building didn't do much, and this one didn't do much. But I had a shop where I could buy items, and I could also, I think, sell items for money. And then this was all about farming money, right? For example, here I can now place this guy in the ground. And as far as I remember, the only downside here was that I would have to use... Yeah, I still had these stupid tactics, right? This guy would still need to do tactics, or you would have to use these abilities by hand, which was terrible. Should have done it differently. But yeah, I didn't really do that. This could have been a great roguelike, or roguelite. But again, you can see here that I redesigned the background again. I drew the grass again for one more time. I changed the trees. And I again changed the UI a lot. Because I was still not happy with how the game looked, UI-wise. And what I noticed was around this time that my game wasn't getting any views on YouTube. But if I go to my channel and I go to some of my very old videos, these devlogs weren't getting any views at all. Apart from this, but this was heavily edited. This stuff right here was not very well received. This was only 500 views. And then here we had another devlog, very little views. Until I made a video about a world map with Explore. I didn't really get anything substantial in terms of views on my videos. And so I started to really question, what is my game doing wrong that I don't get any attention? So for example, I saw people put no efforts into their videos and they got so many views or so much engagement because I guess the game was good. They had a really good game idea. But for me, that never really was the case. I never had anyone interested in my game, or barely anyone interested in my game. You could also see it in a graph, right? The graph told the story. There was one player or no players at all the entire time. Getting attention on YouTube, but I also didn't get any attention on Steam. I got no wish lists at all. This entire period is 700 wish lists. 700. 2 years. 700 wish lists. Hey, Based Code, thank you very much for the raid, man. Appreciate it. Bro, 2 years for 700. Now I get like 700 in a couple of days. Almost one person per day. Just a couple of things that I wrote down. I had two complicated skill shots. Abilities all used energy. Even though they were cool, you know, I didn't... it was obvious that people weren't really engaged. The enemy scaling sucked. For example, something I didn't tell you. Whenever you leveled up a character to a higher level and you would go play a mission with them, the enemies would scale to your level. So you could never really become crazy powerful because the enemies would always be on your level. And so that really sucked. Because then there was no real term of progression. They would just kill you regardless. No matter what you did. And that was something that I shouldn't have done. I should have kept the enemy scaling so that in endless mode, the further you get into endless mode, the more the enemies scale, which is typical like in Vampire Survivors, for example, right? And then the story mode, the enemy scaling is flat. Level 1 has the basic enemies, level 2 has basic enemies plus a couple more, but they don't scale. If you're level 10, you're going to one-shot every enemy in level 1, but you're going to struggle against enemies in level 10, right? So that's basically what I have right now in 10GTD in the story mode, where you can outgrow the enemies just by leveling up. But yeah, after realizing that my biggest issue was appeal, and there was no real power fantasy. Like, chat. How many of you have a power fantasy about being an orange? Tell me. Me? A peel like an orange peel? How many of you want to be a powerful orange? This was essentially the first time where I realized that, but for some reason, I still went ahead and did the following. I tried to add more appeal to my game by changing the oranges to oranges. Just different looking. Smart, yeah, very smart. What I changed essentially was, and this was something that is in the game to this day, I added I added the oranges, but I gave them weapons and equipment that you can see. You can see here that he has a new bow. And if I change the bow also changes the visuals. And oh, we also have sound effects. Nice. So yeah. Hey, this is wrong. Let's double down. Yeah, that was so bad. Again, I should have realized this a lot earlier, but I didn't. I should have changed the characters, but I was so stuck on the orange theme. To be fair, I think it's significantly improved over the first version. Yeah, I appreciate it. Like the first character version, you say. Yeah, they look better. That's true. So yeah, as I was, you know, improving the game, I was then also working on this stuff right here. They still had the same, you know, skill system. You could re-roll to get more stuff. You needed to level up by buying level ups. This one costs 40 gold. I haven't gotten any gold yet. So yeah, terrible. And by the way, for those of you who are wondering, this change that I did, that took like 3 months. So I spent 3 months of changing oranges to oranges. Yeah. That was great, let me tell you. You don't like the text fonts for the game? Yeah, the text font, like there were so many issues with this game. The font is okay. I've seen worse. But yeah. So yeah, this, by the way, guys, is almost the final version before I switch to OpenGL. So yeah, like this way of leveling up units is really cool. And I feel like I want to make a game around this again, because I think I did a good job with this, like being able to equip units with different items. And having these items show up on your characters. And then leveling them up permanently in a tower defense setting, I think would be cool. And then instead of having these abilities, the items would have the ability. That could be a different type of rogue light tower defense game, I feel. That could be a really cool idea. And I feel like I should have visualized this. The only problem that I saw with this was this Vampire Survivors upgrade menu. Essentially what you would do here is you didn't have enough skills to choose from, and this was no gamble. You would just constantly re-roll until you get the ability you wanted. And if you didn't, then you would just wait until you found more of those re-rolled currency items, which was bad. And so what I did then was I removed this Vampire Survivors menu and I added in skill trees. And that was the last version. This was the last version that I had before I switched to OpenGL. I also... I think I lost a bet here. This was the last version before I switched to OpenGL. This is Vulcan still. But I think I had to put this castle into my game because I lost the stream bet or something. So yeah. Anyways. You can see here that I finally replaced the Stardew Valley trees with my own trees. And yes, I'll have you know, I drew all of these trees myself, okay? I didn't draw them from Google. Alright, this also has Perlin Noise and Bloom. I'll have you know, chat. This is Bloom. Watch this, chat. Options. Bloom. This guy is now more bloomified. And you can see here that, again, I did another entire rework. Because I took the town away. I took the units away. And this time I went for the world map. Guys, how many different games do we have at this point? At this point in time, we are looking at September 2023. So 2 years after starting my game, how many different games have I made in the same game? How many games? Go to the right? Yeah. think I had like 5 or 6 different games. All within the same engine, the same framework, all different for some reason. And now, at this point in time, before switching to OpenGL, I realized that, oh, you can't really place many units. It's very boring. I'm going to make it so that you play a game, or that the game is like, not vampire, like Plants vs. Zombies. So you have these, let's not call them sunflowers, but these tree stumps. And they can spawn juice for your seeds. And then with that, you get more stuff to put. No, that's actually wrong, is it? No, actually, that's correct. To put, you know, weapons on your units. To spawn units. So, within like a couple of months, I completely redesigned the game. I removed the inventory from units. They now have items they get through money. What the hell is this? Why is there so much? What's going on here? What's happening? Is there some bloom error or something? Hello? Uh-oh. I need more money. Hey! I lost. I subscribed around this version. Yeah, and so this was the end of 2023, September. I still don't know why you have to buy these items, by the way. This was work in progress. That glow is beautiful, man. There was bloom in... I don't know why this sticks here, though. So there's definitely something wrong with the Vulkan renderer. But yeah, at this point, I was having enough of Vulkan. And I said, it's over. I don't want to deal with this anymore. It wasn't fun at all. And I switched away. If we go to the commits, we're now looking at November 2023. Which, for those of you remember, like I got really mad at Vulkan at some point. At this point in time, we also had hot code reloading, which was really cool. Because that would allow me to make the game while it is running, which is really cool. But I got really mad at Vulkan. I'm trying to find the commit here, but I guess I can't. I wish this was a public repository. Yeah, maybe I can make it a public repository at some point. Yeah, essentially I was having enough of Vulkan. And somewhere here, I wonder if it's like F OpenGL. Here, finish the giant OpenGL rework. Save point before dumbest rework of the renderer. Vulkan sucks anyways, and I'm annoyed by the giant state machine. It took me 20 days from this point, okay, from here, from this game, which arguably looks kind of nice. You know, it looks beautiful, not gonna lie. I spent a lot of time on this. Looks good. It took me 20 days to get the game back. You guys want to know how the game looked after the rework from Vulkan to OpenGL, the very first version that compiled? Cover your eyes, my brothers, because so this was the main menu. It doesn't look too bad. Like there's some orange here in the top left. I don't know why that is. Show lines changed. You want to see the lines changed? How can I see that? I mean, that was a little bit, you know. I think that is the biggest commit that I've ever done in my entire life. Switching from Vulkan to OpenGL. And this, by the way, this is all hand-picked. I did all of this by hand. There's nothing AI, whatever. No. You have to understand. This is 2023. We're not talking about AI here. It's like, done. Change 50,000 lines of code. Just like this. No, this is all hand-picked lines of code, bruh. Changed everything. I bet you got sick. Oh, bro, I got sick multiple times, bruh. But yeah, this is what it looked like 20 days later, and yeah, I mean, we had a game, you know, I guess. We had a game. Volume. Uh-oh. Failed opening file. Uh-oh. Yeah. That was my game. That took a lot of time to get right again. And so from this point onward, what I had to do was get everything in order so that the game looked the same way as before, but better in the new renderer. And that was so much work. It was insane how much work that was. But 2 months later, from this point onward, we are now looking at this menu here. Most of the buttons work. The options menu is still kind of broken, you know. But it's a bit bright now. We are almost back to what we had before and a bit better. We had meta progression at this point. That's when I took Vampire Survivors and wanted to add more stuff that you could farm outside the levels. So meta progression. And I started to work on this legendary map, chat. This is the legendary map. We looked at this map for 2 years straight. This map only. You know how many comments I got every day telling me, Cakez, why don't you make a new map? I'm sick and tired of looking at this map. Spend all the time, every day, single day, you work on the map, work on this map. Every time it's the same. I hate it. Every day, chat. Every day. I remember saying that. Yeah, people told me that all the time. But essentially what we had here was the basic idea of what would be TNGTD. We have the skill trees. We have the different characters. They cost money. They can get weapons and ability upgrades with money. And this is all about farming money with this pickpocket thing here. Where like I can do it endlessly here because this is just a random version. Oh my god, this guy had a lot of freaking range. And then you could choose one of these abilities when leveling up. And then with the next level, you could choose a tier 2 ability. Meaning, it doesn't really show here. But this is a tier 2 ability. And these 3 other abilities are tier 1 abilities. And since he has them unlocked with skill points, he can train them. And there's also the guy that would ultimately become the final boss of the game. The brightness went up. Yeah. And so yeah, I worked on this version of the game for almost 2 years. Starting in September 2021 till February starting in September 2023 all the way up till 2025. I worked on this version. I tried to improve it. And the tactics menu at this point was gone. Units would use abilities whenever they were off cooldown, based on the target priority of the unit. But the target priority was right here at the bottom. You could set it here to different priorities. And if I click this, I think the game crashes. Okay, no, it doesn't. Good. I didn't have any items yet found. So, oh, this guy could get, for example, this bow right here, the long bow. And then he has a new bow upgraded. And you can see here, like the items on units was there all the time. I just didn't implement it in a very easy way. I did not find the way yet, or I had not find a way to properly upgrade units, or to properly give these units the items, the upgrades. It didn't feel very rewarding, let's say, to upgrade the units, and it was too many clicks. If you compare this, right, this guy, I select him, I click on the upgrade button. Let's get some money. Right, I click on the upgrade button, then I click another button. That is 2 clicks. That's 2 clicks. In Bloons, and 3 clicks to select the character. In Bloons, it's select character, upgrade. Select character, upgrade. And I was always having 3 clicks, which is bad. But it was getting there, right? At this point, the game was getting to a point where it was not only good looking, but also starting to get really fun. And so, yeah, that was in January 2024, this version right here. And from this point onward, I started working on, and that was the first time I ever heard the term 5 minutes of fun. So right here, this is a couple of months later, 4 months later, actually, in May of 2024, halfway through the year. This was the first version where I could confidently say I have 5 minutes of fun. Meaning that I changed the upgrade system a bit so that it is a bit easier to do. Instead of having this bottom bar, it's still here. I didn't find a better commit. But this bottom bar was almost entirely obsolete. It was all done through this upgrade menu here. Right, and so for example, if you had found an item or unlocked an ability in the skill tree, and my god, these sound effects, are just crazy. They blast your ears. Oh my god. Okay. There was somewhat of a, it was getting, let's say, it was getting closer to what the game is now. And I would keep this design through the entirety of 2024. And what I worked on the most here is that I wanted a way for the player to progress every time they play. So for example, if you play a game of Vampire Survivors and you lose, you still gained gold, and then you put the gold into meta progression, so your next run will get you further. So even if you lose in Vampire Survivors, you are still winning and incrementally getting stronger, somewhat incrementally, right? It's not real crazy incremental, but in a way. And it never feels like you're wasting your time. And so that's what I wanted to. And I don't know if I get lucky enough, but I added in gold drops that you could get. So even if you lost, you would gain some gold, but it's random, right? So some of them can drop gold, some of them won't. And yeah, I worked a lot on this and tried out many different ways of, you know, adding items into this upgrade menu here. And then adding stats required for different abilities, different units. And you can see here that the inspiration at this point was Bloons. I will later add on a way that you cannot place units on the road anymore. And then this was effectively Bloons, but worse. That is what the next version is. And so I spent a lot of time on this version to get to my very first to my very first let's say, proper Steam demo. This right here is the Steam demo that I uploaded to Steam, and you guys played it after 2 years of having no players. That's the bump right here. That's you guys playing for a couple of days. And what this showed me after such a long time of working on the game, and you can see here that by this point, I still had some issues, but the game had changed. From the original state to now, it had changed so much. The UI started looking really good. The upgrade menus, the units were still the same, somewhat, right? But I think I started doing a really good job on learning how to build, let's say, clear UI that is not too confusing and at the same time displays all of the information needed to the player so that they don't get confused or overwhelmed. If you remember some of the earlier versions, the text was giant. And then we had like 2 menus right next to each other to show upgrades and stuff like that. This has all been, or mostly all been fixed in this version, even though there was still some stuff. There was still some stuff that is work in progress. But what I wanted to achieve with this demo is I wanted to see if my game has a future or not. I wanted to see if people like this game or if they hate it. And after almost 2 years of getting no real feedback, what finally got me here, and to give you guys an idea of how bad the game looked, this is essentially the data from before I updated my game. I had 232 players that played the game, quit in the first 1 to 10 minutes. Some of them might have quit at the very first minute. Maybe some at minute 2. But in the first 10 minutes, everyone basically quit. And if you guys remember a couple of weeks ago when we talked about this insanely awesome looking Stardew Valley type game, where it's a farming game, right? An auto, I guess it was an auto or idle game. The guy had such a complicated system to just hire a worker, your first worker, that I got so frustrated and almost quit the game in the first 2 minutes because I didn't know how to build a worker. You guys remember that? That's essentially the same thing that my game was for 2 years on Steam. That was the version that we watched on YouTube where the guy got so angry that he almost smashed his desk, right? That was this version right here.
Okay. I can only buy 2 here.
This right here. That's your heavy game? No, that's not true. You're wrong. You're wrong. So yeah, and then what else got me here? Because mind you, the time frame from the first release to here is 2 years. I was taking a look. I was taking a look at the Git commits and you know what I was doing in this time. I did a lot of reworks. That is true. I added in abilities. You know, I changed stuff around. Penis, yeah. And ultimately, I would have never gotten to this point, I think. Maybe I would have, but what helped me a lot to get to this point was to write down a very simple to-do list. This is what I need to do to finish my demo version and upload it to itch.io. To Steam. And so I would write down a simple list of required tasks and then put check marks next to those tasks and then set myself a time frame until when I want to be done with those or when I should be done with it. And that's helped me to go from just digging around, testing speed changes, you know, reworking projectiles, all of those things that don't really need to happen. This approach made me focus on the important part so that I could finally get a game. Here's another one. Debuff, bleed, poison, burn, rework. Now back to dots. Damage over time. Damage per frame. Improve the text on abilities. Change items. So basically I was going back and forth between things that doesn't matter. I was having dots. A simple dot. Burn. You can apply damage every frame, or you can apply damage in ticks. So for example, in the very first versions of what's it called? Of World of Warcraft, dots apply tick damage. So you have tuk, then you wait a bit, tuk, damage again. And I was doing that back and forth. I was deciding on, oh, now I want to have dot damage apply every frame. Now I want to have tick damage. No, let's get back to dot damage. And so this stuff, it was just wasting my time. And so a to-do list like this was very helpful to focus in on the important part. And so yeah, this was the version, and for me an ultimate test, because by this point I had spent about 3 years on the game. If the game had a future or not. I decided to finally release a demo, and if no one played, and this was how many days was this? January 27, February 3. It was about 5 days where the game was doing very well. And that, mind you, that was just a demo, right? And for me, that was going from 1 player to 20 was really good until I turned it off. I needed to know if the game had a future, because by that point, the last feedback, actual player feedback that I had gotten was like a year and a half ago or something. And the reason why this part from the first Steam demo to the second demo to this version took so long was because I made the grave mistake of switching between different stuff that I didn't know would work without validating that it could work, if that makes sense. So again, I would add in a feature like the abilities or the skill tree or the items, and I wouldn't have any way of knowing if that feature worked. Then I would play it myself, I would find some problems with it, and then I would cook up another feature and test that feature again. And it was like an endless cycle of testing out new stuff, because I didn't write down specific things that I wanted to have in my game that would make my game complete, because I didn't know them, because I tried to do something new that no one has ever done before. And you go into this death trap of just doing nothing essentially, but doing so many different things, right? And so here what we have, this is the demo version that you guys played a lot. We had 40 rounds. This also included a boss. You could effectively, it was effectively balloons, and you would get money, permanent money, that you could then spend on upgrades and meta progression outside this level. So even if you lost in this level, which was very likely because I made this level very difficult, you would still be able to spend your money outside the level to grow stronger. Like you could see here those abilities that are currently in TNGTD 2. Have you missed streaming, Cakes? Yeah, I have. Like, I felt bad, but there's so much stuff that I need to do that there was just no other way. But it was also nice to finally have some breathing room to do different things. Unfortunately, the DMCA stuff happened and I had to deal with that. But yeah, so essentially what we have here after going from a different type of game, we have a Bloons clone. A worse Bloons clone. But still people finally liked the game, and I saw a rise in wishlists for the first time in my life. And that's what it looked like, essentially. We need to probably go to 10GTD. This one. We had, for the first time, let me see the charts. December, here we go. We can't really see it in wish lists, unfortunately. That's bad, though. Yeah, I mean, we can't really see that, can we? Yeah, maybe a little bit. No, that's February. Wait a second. That's 2026. We need to go to 2025. Yeah, no, that was not bad. Yeah, I had barely any followers. Oh, I can actually look at wish lists. You guys are right. Wait a second. All right, let's see here. Custom. So I wanna go from 2025, right? We want the, let's see, the 1st of May 2025, and we want to start in 2024 October update, and hopefully we get a graph. There we go. Yeah, that's good. Can I also do... I could, yeah. Shit. Oh no. How do I reset this? Aha, I could just click. All right. And you can see here that I barely got any wish lists at all. Nothing, really. And this was despite streaming every day. Mind you, I was streaming every day. And sometimes I told people to wishlist the game. I got absolutely nothing. Nothing. You know, here. I had 600 wish lists. 700 in January in 2025. That is 2 years after my game first came to Steam. And then with this version and the new demo on Steam, I finally got players to play it. And it felt really good. Especially this, that the game got more and more players at that time, right? And then I did have players in the demo version, which was really good. And yeah, I was really proud at this point because I had never seen anyone care about the game before. And that for me was enough validation to keep going and working on the game. And so at this point, I started to finally realize how you should actually be making games. If that makes sense. Like, obviously, there's always differences and for everyone. But for me, the best way to make games, I think what you could do is you build something, a minimum viable product with a gameplay loop, and then you give it out to people and they give you feedback. And this is what happened to me. I got feedback. So, for example, what was the problem with this approach? Number one, the original idea of enemies attacking was secondary. They were no longer attacking; they were just running, just like in Bloons, right? It's essentially a Bloons simulator game at this point. And so the unique mechanic that I had, where the enemies would be fighting back, and you need to block them from progressing, that was entirely gone. However, it was still in the game at a much later stage, around round 30, 25. When you get there, all of a sudden the enemies would start attacking you and killing your units that you spent a lot of money into upgrading. And that felt really bad, because all of a sudden, let's say you put all your money into this guy, he dies. That was really bad. People hated that. It sucked that the units were dying. And at the same time, the item acquisition, weapons and equipment. I've now been playing this game passively for about 10 minutes. I didn't see a single item. If you compare this with my game now, you had, at this point in 10 minutes, you already tried out 20 items. Maybe, right? And so there were big design flaws that made the player not feel this instant power fantasy. And if I was, at this point, I was trying to look at balloons and other games to figure out what I was doing wrong. Essentially, I wasn't giving the player enough upgrades fast enough, but at the same time, I was overwhelming them with all of these different heroes and choices and equipment and abilities and skill tree and leveling up and placement. And so like it was just way too much for a simpler game than Bloons, or for a worse game than Bloons. But thankfully, with the rise in attention to the game and to wish lists, I decided, see, like I went, man, that's crazy, bruh. I got like 150 wish lists here. Not bad. Like, this is nice. Going from 600 to 900 in such a short time period is really good. At least for me, right? In that sense. And so what I now learned was, you bring out your game, a demo version, you get feedback, you work on the feedback, you bring out a new version that is different enough, and then you get feedback again, and you repeat the cycle. I would like to call this bursts of feedback. You're looking for bursts of feedback. You bring out a big patch, people give you a lot of feedback, you go back into your closet, and you fix up the game, you do as much as you can, and then you bring out another big patch. And that's what I did with this. However, this was also the time when I started to realize that OpenGL is terrible. Because I got a bunch of different errors that I couldn't fix. We got, for example, here we have a shader link error. Then we had another, this is a classic, essentially. We had one guy that was using Bloom. His entire UI started blooming, and it was completely offset from the game. And this is another guy where the UI all of a sudden started blooming yellow. And I had no idea how to fix this. OpenGL Changi never worked on my computer, said, yeah, some people couldn't even start the game. And it was just complete, like here, for example, half of this is blooming, the other half is not. Like so many weird issues that I had no choice. I couldn't fix them. So I decided I would go ahead and try out DirectX. And I actually have proof to you that it only took me a week to add DirectX into the game. If we go to 2025 in the commits, and let me actually make that a bit smaller, because it's really difficult to read. Yeah. Save point before DirectX. 6 days later, ChanGTD added DirectX renderer back into the game. 6 days, chat. Yeah, the biggest problem with OpenGL that we had was the error reporting. We didn't get clear error reporting, and it was really difficult to tell what was wrong with the setup on that person's computer. So I couldn't really go and fix it easily because it wouldn't tell me. And the biggest part about OpenGL that sucks is that it behaves differently on different machines. Which sucks. Because then you have a different outcome. 6 days is only twice as much time as the Ellipse took. So, yeah, essentially in about a week, I added back in the DirectX renderer, and to prove to you that this is real. Like, this is the game, right? I don't want to keep playing this because this takes a long time. It's like Bloons. This is the game running on DirectX. Same game. Same game. Literally everything's the same. Different heroes, but same mechanics. Little bit of different sprites, but it's the same idea. it took me a couple of days to get all of the errors fixed. Bloom was not implemented. I took Bloom out. Okay, so technically speaking, it's not exactly the same game. Okay, it's not exactly all of the features that I had, but it was close enough. Okay, and this version would then become, or this renderer would then become the base for future projects. And the cool thing was that really after a couple of days and adding in a proper DirectX logger and stuff like that, I was good to go. I could go back to fixing bugs in the game. There was barely anything that I needed to do to keep DirectX supported, because it was so verbose in reporting errors in the beginning that I could focus on, listen here, working on Goblin Brute Boss, working on Archer, working on balancing, working on Goblin Camp, Gold Chest, Save Point, Ranking System. All of this is gameplay. At this point, I had been making the game for so long that with this DirectX renderer, the game had become so stable. There were still a couple of hiccups here and there somewhere, not with DirectX, but in general with the game, that the game had become so stable. And through all of the testing, listen, when you have the luck that your game gets so many players, which for a demo version is a lot, and so much feedback and so many different systems testing your game, you are effectively practicing for your launch, and you are fixing all of the most vital crashes and errors before you go and release your game, so that when you release the game can be as stable as possible, right? And you can see here that I had about 3 demo versions that I released that year, with this one in October being Steam Next Fest. And that was the decider on whether I would finish the game quickly and move on, or whether I spent a lot of time making it as good as possible before I release it. That was last year. That was a couple of months ago. And so essentially, to quickly go and say what the problems were with this again, to reiterate, the problems with this version now running on DirectX were complicated upgrades, skill tree not that intuitive, especially the abilities. You train ability here, you still have to buy the ability to actually use it. Very complicated system. The items, when you got an item, you could only get that item in town, buying it here. I think I had chest drops, but they were very rare, so you didn't really get many items. And then again, buying an item was going through this menu and buying it, which I guess could technically be fine, but this menu was very, you can see, right? So a lot of UI put into a very small space. And so with all of these issues in the game, I worked on a new version. And so with this in mind, speaking early February 2025, this is when I finally got into the habit. And by the way, I want to thank Mr. Rames for giving me, and it's a basic idea, guys, right? You have done this probably before too, right? I want to thank Mr. Rames for this basic idea of just writing down the exact steps needed to finish your game or to get to a demo version, and then putting a timer on it saying, oh, I need this much time to finish it. That helped me a lot in getting into the iteration cycle of making a patch and releasing a new version. And so, for example, after this version, I released a new version where the game had changed dramatically again, because by this point, you need to understand that I had become a father. I had Zoe for about a year. So Zoe was, I think, a year old at this point, something like that. And I started to really take it very serious that I need to do something to support my family. I can't just keep, let's say, dicking around and you know, I don't know, make changes here, make changes there, but not get anywhere. And so I started to really take the feedback seriously, and I started to filter out useless feedback to feedback that can be done later but not important right now, to feedback that absolutely needs to change. And so one of the big feedback points that I had gotten was enemies attacking my units sucked. You didn't really like that. And so what I then did was a new demo version where at this point, and by the way, this is the goblin in question that we got the DMCA strike from, but enemies would now primarily, or the entire game would now revolve around enemies attacking you. You can see right here that if I place the unit here, which I can't even, I can only place it beside the road, I forgot. He would attack me when I press play, right? Oh god, that sound effect is terrible. Let me just change that sound effect. And this was me trying to get to a point of having a good gameplay loop that makes fun. I also kept the trees that would farm money for me. This time it was oranges. I changed this again. And you can see here, right? They start attacking me when they walk by. And I slowly lose health unless I get healed, right? But it was still complicated. The UI got better, but it was still very complicated. So yeah, essentially what I learned that year, 2025, for me was a big year. I went from this right here to the game being connected to Steam, and from having into having the enemies effectively be the original version again, but the game is much more built around that and much more clean. The UI looks a lot better. Like, I learned so much, especially about UI and feedback on gameplay mechanics. What is obvious, what is too difficult, how can you make something more easy to understand. So for example, one thing that I had not learned yet, but was in this version at this point, this was right here, that was the third version or something that I released, which by this point we are talking, I think, if this is August, I had a playtest running as well. This might have been May. This version right here is, I think, the playtest feature of Steam that I tested out in May 2025. I had learned that a lot of mechanics could still stay the same in the game, but can be so much easier. Can be made so much easier. And so, for example, weapons and abilities, the big one, abilities being in the skill tree, was so bad because it was so confusing. Most people would get an ability and never get the ability here because they didn't know they had to train the ability. They didn't know that. And so they were just stuck with the basic attacks, but they could have a rocket launcher, essentially, right? But they were still just using the basic attacks. However, just constantly getting this player feedback. Yeah, it was so many iterations on this. But again, this was not because I knew that this is what needed to be done. This was because you guys told me what was wrong with the game, and some of you guys were right, and some other guys were wrong, okay? But the majority of people that would repeat certain sentiments, that's what I focused on. When I got feedback and it kept repeating, then I would work on that the first thing to get it into the game. Like, for example, what many said that was that when I place this guy on the road, I don't know that he's going to get attacked by the enemies. But it's obvious once they attack you, that's fine. But if I place this guy next to the road, too close, all of a sudden he gets attacked too. But he's on the grass. Shouldn't he not get attacked? And so stuff like this, right? That I basically had to learn clear game design here. And 2025 was big on that. And one big change also that I did at this time, you might have noticed, was these splines, right? Being able to design a map by no longer having to build the map with a tile set, but with splines, right? That was so helpful because now I could focus on just building a road real quick, putting some enemies into the map, and playing without actually having anything in the level. The level could be completely empty. As long as I have a road, it is essentially the same, right? It's essentially the same level. I can still test it. That was very, very helpful. And the big reason for why I was able to do this, or I actually did this, was Real Superku, because he implemented the feature off stream on his own, and then he made me do it too. I was like, hey, if he can do it, and it took him only a day, I should be able to do it too, even if it takes me like 2 or 3 days. And yeah, that's essentially how I managed to make my game better over time, simply by listening to you guys' feedback. And I had luck as well, because I was streaming this entire time. And without me streaming and without you guys, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere near the amount of feedback needed to make the game get to this point, to make the game good enough so that it could be a viable product. Because in this state right here, it is not yet a viable product. What pushed me to... Again, the biggest problems here were the skill tree and the upgrade menu. These two things were too complicated still. And then the level up on each hero. That was also... Like, you have 2 units placed down. They are both level 30. Are they both level 30? Or not? Was really difficult to understand. Okay, that will cost you 10% of the sale. Should I forward you to my bank details? Yeah, you changed tile set into splines, mainly cost tile, map paths, and TDG looked off. Both. Tile map tiles were never perfectly round, which is very important for a TD game. You could see it on the edges of the grass here. But also it was really difficult to make maps fast. It took too long. It's a strong skill of you to be open to feedback continuously. Well, we had some discussions, so let's say that too, right? Because people were trying to be smart. And yeah, essentially this was me preparing for Steam Next Fest. And I was really lucky that before Steam Next Fest, I got to talk to Tommy, who is the developer of Gnomes. For those of you who know Gnomes, it's a game on Steam. By that time, we are talking like, I don't know, May, June, July in 2025. I talked to the developer of Gnomes, which is this game right here. You guys know this. And I was able to get some valuable insight on how to design a game and how to finish a game and what to do when the game turns out to not be the hit you hoped it would be, right? By this time, I was very, let's not say depressed, but negative about my game. You guys remember the times, because I had worked on the game for almost 4 years and I didn't really see the wish lists and the attention that I was hoping for. If we're looking at the wish lists going into April, we are looking at 1,000 wish lists, which is a high number. But considering that some games reach this within few months, for me, it was years of work. And streaming at the same time. So I was expecting half of these wish lists just to be wish lists from some people that watch me to be nice. You know? Type 1 in chat if you had wishlisted my game just to be nice, but maybe not 100% deciding on whether you would buy it or not. Right? I had a lot of people, and I knew that, because that's what happens with content creators. When they make something, people will be nice to you and play your game, or buy your game even, or wishlist your game, just because they want to support you. But the honest truth is that this is nice. However, it is a wrong take on reality. Maybe only half of the wishlists you have are actual gamers that are interested in your game. And so I was looking at this number and realizing that I don't have that many wishlists. I don't have that many people that are actually interested in my game. And so I was talking to the developer of Gnomes, to Tommy, and I was talking to another developer of, where the frick is it? Like, didn't I look at Gnomes just a second ago? Oh, here. I was also talking to Thornity about this. And by this time, he had released Click and Conquer, which you guys remember too, this game. We played that as well. Recently made a video about this as well. And I was talking to him about incremental games and how to keep the player's attention, the first 5 minutes of fun, the first 30 minutes of fun. And because of those two, I decided to do another rework to increase the resolution of my game from this, which is pretty zoomed in, to even higher resolution, and to go and do a global skill tree. And that was ultimately the version that I released for Steam Next Fest. And I told myself that if this version right here, we have the feedback button here, the wishlist button here, you know, and this global skill tree, if this game cannot give me any wishlists and doesn't do well in Steam Next Fest, then I don't see a future. And so the goal for Steam Next Fest, in that we are talking October 2025, was to get 1,000 wishlists. You can see here that I changed. It is now zoomed out even more. And I finally added in, and this is big thanks. Like, I have two people to thank for this. Big thanks to Null Exception in chat. He told me that the items that I'm finding in the upgrade menu is very confusing. Why not just make items and you put these items on the units? But this simple change came from him. And I was like, bro, let me test this out. And it was awesome. I remember coding this update when I was in Albania with my wife for vacation. I was sitting there at 5 a.m. in the morning because it was so warm. I was sitting outside the balcony with my laptop, trying to freaking press these small little laptop keys and implement this update. And that was about in June or something. I did that. And it turned out that this was the best move I could have done. Because with this, I was able to give the player instant gratification on upgrades. Like, for example, you have a defender here. He's good. How do you make him stronger? You give him a big shield. And now I was starting to actually get the power scaling or the power fantasy of tower defense games that you want to have, where you have this one tower that just obliterates everything. This was now, you could feel it when you would do this, right? When you would add items to units, you would give them strong items with abilities and that would just make them overpowered. And so this in combination with the giant skill tree was a saving grace for the game, because people really enjoyed that. And then we finally got our first content creator to cover the game, or to play the game, which was the Russian, the Polish person that played my game. And when he played it, this was Steam Next Fest, right here, this graph right here. I think this was him playing the game on October 14. My highest player count in Steam Next Fest, and then over the next course of days it stayed somewhat the same, and then it started going down again. But this allowed me to finally get some tamate, yeah. This finally allowed me to see someone else being interested in the game, because by this point, mind you, it's not like I was doing nothing. Okay, I wasn't just streaming. No. I was also doing this stuff right here. Let me see here. So I was, number one, I was collecting emails in YouTube, right? From YouTube. So essentially what I was doing is I would go to YouTube and I would type in, I don't know, Gnomes, right? Because people played Gnomes tower defense game, Gnomes TD. Right, 1 year ago, Alexa. I would click on this, and I'd be like, okay, Alexa played this. Let me get Alexa's email by going to more. It's an openly available email. You do view email address. I'm not a robot, submit, and then you have the email, right? That's openly available. Anyone can do that, and that's what most solo developers do. Well, you can also use Keymailer and other services that do this for you, but essentially what you do is you collect content creator emails, and then you prepare an email for them that you send them. This is what I prepared, and you give them their name and you give them a Steam key. Now, the problem with my first email was, number one, I only had like, I don't know how much I sent, to be honest. Was it 200 emails? I sent less than 200 emails. That's what I remember. But I didn't get a single response. I still remember this. I spent so much time on this. We spent like 2 days crafting this email, and no one responded. Which, okay, fine. No one responds. That's okay, right? They are busy. I know that too. When I get emails, I almost never respond either. Especially when it's about playing a game. But not a single person played. No one. And that was very heartbreaking for me, because at this point I had spent so much time and effort into making a game as good as possible, going through so many different iterations, so many different versions, and no one played, or no one even wanted to give it a chance by making a video about it. And I think what happened was two things. One, this email is too, let's call it, expensive. It's an HTML email with a GIF, with images at the bottom that are actually GIFs again. And it looks too professional, I guess. And it could be this combination of this looking too professional and or me landing in a spam folder because I have too much data in the email. I'm sending too much over the account to them, that this just lands into spam immediately. And so what I learned from this is, guys, keep it simple. Okay, just keep it simple. Try not to do too much, because if you do too much, then you will very likely land in spam. And don't worry, I will show you what I did for release, right? How I tried to make this better. But yeah, I sent out this email. I also did Reddit posts, and of course I was streaming, and it turned out very badly for me because barely anyone was playing in Steam Next Fest. I was very happy that people were playing, but considering that other games that partook in the Steam Next Fest got over 15,000 wish lists, 20,000, maybe more, and I got 1,000 wish lists, that was very heartbreaking for me, because I had spent so much time and effort into crafting the game as good as possible. And to me, there was a clear sign that my game still lacked appeal. That there was still something that people didn't really like in the game that was off-putting. Or that where they were like, I don't want to play this. I don't feel like playing this, right? It's not my thing. And so I was talking about this a lot, or thinking about this a lot. Maybe it's the oranges. Maybe it was my Steam capsule at the time. I didn't really know. And so obviously I improved everything going forward from here. And the first thing I did was I put the abilities that were separate from the items onto the items. So now with, and this is essentially the last change that I did before I switched over my oranges finally. I had a version of the game where I completely removed the abilities from the skill trees. And this is looking very much like the version you have right now, right, that you're playing, with the exception of the oranges still being here. I removed all of the abilities. The upgrade menu or the selection menu was now only this tiny bar of stats. And all of the abilities would now be on the items. So a giant rework, literally 2 months before releasing my game on Steam. After spending 4 years with this system, finally changing it again completely, reworking it onto the items. And I think that was the best decision ever. Because now being able to have abilities on items, what you could do, what that allowed me to do was add in on hit effects that would happen, and I could have active abilities and on hit abilities happen at the same time. And that's when you could, you know, do a multi-arrow shot, and each multi-arrow shot would spawn, for example, let me actually toggle item list, would spawn a burning arrow pool on the ground, for example, right? And so you could combine these abilities together, which was really cool. And that's when the upgrade and the power scaling really went into overdrive, which was awesome. And just a couple things that I want to talk about here. AQ was also a very big help for me. AQ Jun, like the mod, my mod. He helped me make a really good looking lighting system that had not bloom, but that had glow. Look at this, for example, here. That didn't look terrible. Because by this point, I had spent like minimum 3 months over the course of these multiple years just to try to get some decent lighting, and it never worked out. It was so annoying to always have these, like, either the colors were too bright and overly saturated, or it was too dark and there was no contrast at all. And finally he helped me make a really good looking shader where the light actually looked good. So yeah, guys, big W's in chat for Mr. AQ for helping me with this. It was complex. It was complex. Lighting is complex. It's not simple. So yeah, big W's to him. Thank you so much for your help, man. And yeah, to help with the appeal of the game, the first thing I did, and I didn't even talk about this, but I added in a moving character. And I put this moving character as the frontal part of my game. Female character, witch character, to help with appeal. When someone sees the game on Steam, they are more likely to click than when they see an orange here, right? So that was the first thing. And then I learned about pathfinding. So for example, I learned how to do pathfinding in a 2D top-down game with blocked tiles. Yeah, humans are more attracted to females than fruits. That's true. Yeah, and so at this point, I still had the orange theme, but I went more into the direction of, well, how can I create appeal, even from outside the game, with just a capsule? Because my capsule at this point was very limited, and, well, it looked really cheap too. So you guys remember, I also paid someone to do the capsule. It didn't really work out very well with them. We had a lot of issues, but it is how it is. So yeah, I added in this playable character, Kingdom Rush style, essentially. Tangy, call it Tangy, and then Tangy TD made sense. And then finally, was it ByteUL? ByteUL posted a picture on Discord of a chibi character attacking instead of an orange. And I don't know if can someone find the post on Discord? Someone able to find it? The original post, and can give me a link there? Classic? Yeah, it was a classic. And then, so this was the last version, right? Before I did that change to the chibis. And that was also then the final version that I would launch the game with. But let's see. Okay, so yeah, that does work. Does actually work. So you can see here. I also, by this time, had finally found someone with the music, right? And this is actually the release version of the game that we launched with. I focused a lot on adding more content, more maps, and here's something that I learned while doing this. It was very important to save as much time as possible while also adding in quality to the game. So for example, this map is one of my favorite maps because not only does it look really good and I love snow, but also because this contains two really good looking enemies that I have gotten entirely from itch.io. The only thing that I needed to do on this enemy is draw a texture on him because they were just black or very dark blue. They didn't have the same texture as the golem. But this golem here cost me $5. And if I had to draw this golem myself, time-wise, if an hour of time is $20, I would have had to spend over 20 hours, so a minimum of $400 just to draw this golem. Or I could have spent $5 on itch.io and buy this immediately. And so this is when I learned the final push where I added in content and more stuff and more stuff and more stuff. I learned that sometimes the best thing to do is to pay for something. Even if you don't have much money, it is cheaper to pay for something than it is to make it yourself, because the time that you spent on it is more expensive than buying it. And yeah, this was the change to chibis, and I think thanks to ByteUL, this change saved my game a lot. It made the game look so much better than before. And so ultimately, how did my game get to this point? It was just a giant trial and error over multiple years. Right? It was multiple years of trying out so many different things and then realizing, oh, that doesn't work, this sucks. And ultimately, at some point, if you just keep pushing, you are going to get somewhere, even if you have no clue what you're doing. Because you will learn from the failures. You will learn from your mistakes. And yeah, that's what I did. I tried to learn and take away something every time when something didn't work out. Same with the DMCA issue. This goblin was affected by DMCA. They took down my game because I had taken this goblin from Google. Basically what I did was I just took the still image and then I animated the image. But since the still image is not my property, I can still get a DMCA strike against me because it looks like theirs. Even if the animation for attacking, running is all mine. It is still their property. And so that was a dumb thing. But yeah, that's what you learn from and you make it better next time. Just a couple of things about the launch. How did I do the launch? How did we even get here, right? How did we get to the point of the game selling? Because on launch, I had about 5,000 wish lists. And the reason how I got there was because I kept streaming to YouTube. Every single day, I would boot up the stream and stream the development of my game on YouTube. It looks like this is popping off, which is nice. And you can see it in the live views here. That, let's go to the time around March. These YouTube streams were pulling in crazy amount of views. And every day I would ask people to wishlist my game. So going back to this graph right here in... actually here. In October, there was still a long way to go. This is YouTube starting to recommend my stream, and this is just after Steam Next Fest. We were sitting at about 2,300 wishlists. YouTube started promoting my stream, and my Twitch streams were also doing very well. And I started getting sometimes up to 50 wishlists a day from advertising my game on YouTube and on Twitch. Through basically what you see right now, through the pinned comments. Right, that's what this looks like. For anyone that's wondering. That's what this looks like. You put a pinned comment here, and then instead of buy TNGTD, it would say wishlist TNGTD. And then I did that both on Twitch, and I did that on YouTube too. Now they want me to verify that's me, bruh. I did that here too. And that was very helpful in spreading the word about my game before the release. However, now, before you're thinking that, oh, it's gonna be easy, I'm just gonna boot up a stream. By that point, I had streamed consistently to both Twitch and YouTube. Either through videos or just streams for over 4 years. I started in October 2021. In October 2025, it was 4 years. You can't just brush this away. That is a long time. It's a huge time investment. And that paid off. And I got lucky that that happened to me. And so, because then on release, right, in order to advertise the game, I did the following. First, I did Reddit posts. You guys remember this? This is one of them, for example. I took... After 4 years, my game is releasing in 24 hours. Made a post. Put some confetti there. Dr. Pepper and my game TNGTD. This one got 138,000 views. This, by the way, like these posts gave me about 50 to 100 wish lists. Which is still very good for someone that was struggling to get even, you know, to 1,000 wish lists over 4 years. Oh, sorry, over 2 years. So I did Reddit posts. I posted this on the same post on multiple different subreddits. And I also, this is the email I sent out to creators. Comparatively to the first one, very simple. Key, release, what is the game about? Hey, my game is releasing today. Just in case you want to make content, what is the game about? Banner of the game, and then Steam, trailer, press kit, and how much price it's gonna be. How much it's gonna be. And then the launch date. Very little text, just getting straight to the point. And with this, I actually got a few people to play my game, which was nice. And another thing I did, this again is the culmination of 4 years of streaming. This is the stream graph for the stream where we sold the game. And this is the point where I released the game. I had 500 people watch me on Twitch at 3 p.m., which is when I released the game. And I had an average viewership of 435 on Twitch. And this, again, this bump right here is luck, but it is luck that had been in the making for multiple months, maybe years even. This is Mr. Primogen raiding the channel at this point right here. And by that point, I had raided Primogen a couple of times. Like, I didn't do it to get raided, right? I did it because I genuinely find him funny. And I tried to give you guys a good experience when I could turn off, so you guys can watch someone interesting. But he remembered that, and he raided me at this crucial time too. I wasn't expecting this. This was not planned, by the way. But it's luck, okay? But he could have decided to raid someone else. He raided me, and he also made a Twitter post about my game. So let me see here. X.com. No, com. There you go. Cold calculation. Yeah, it was all planned, chat. Let me see. I don't even know. This one here. I made this post and Primogen reposted this. And the post got 270,000 views because of this. Because Primogen had reposted this. And that was just insane for me to see. Because all of this culminated in you guys buying the game, and then people from the YouTube and Twitch and from Primogen's viewership buying the game, and that put me into new and trending. But that was not the only thing. You're forgetting the biggest part yet, and that was YouTube. This is my YouTube stream, and this is at the time of releasing the game. There was 800 people confirmed, not botted, watching the game. Watching the stream and looking at me releasing the game. 800. I have never seen so many people. And so combined on both Twitch and YouTube, I had over 1,000 people watch me. And again, this was the culmination of spending so much time and effort into this and getting lucky. I have to stress this. You have to get lucky too. It's just what it is. You know, you could spend all of that time and then you start your stream and you get 10 people or 5 people or no one. Listen, you gotta get lucky too. It's part of it. But the more time you spend on something, when you do get lucky, it is more... How do you say that? Not common. It is more probable that you could act on the luck. If you just start out your stream today and you get lucky today, but you have no experience, it is very unlikely that you could capitalize on the luck you have received, you know? So you kind of make your own luck by being there and let's call it practicing. And so that was the reason that I actually had images somewhere that the game started to sell. Right, the VOD to this day has 50,000 views, which is the highest stream that I ever had. And you can see here that all of those VODs before and after this, they were gotten close to 40,000 views too. So I was getting, on a daily basis, there were so many thousands of people getting eyeballs on the game. Think about it. If you get covered by a big YouTuber, somewhat big YouTuber, there are big YouTubers that get 50,000 views on their videos. There are people that get millions, but there are many YouTubers get like a couple thousand videos on their views on their videos. This is big. That's a lot. I got super lucky here. And again, that's all you guys. I have no control over this. That's you. But that all played into this. You know, and then ultimately what happened was we hit new and trending, and I made a screenshot of that, chat. You guys remember this? Oh, I made a screenshot of this. This is when it happened, boys. This was the new and trending time, and I put a screenshot immediately. I was at the top of the list, and the game was not good. Yay! Whoa! That was the cool part. That's how we hit new and trending. And that's where you wanna be. Most of you already know what happened then, right? Essentially what happened was that my wife and I reacted to a clip, or no, not reacted to a clip. My wife and I reacted to the revenue 30 hours later, and that then got turned into a clip by someone of you guys, and it went viral online, which then made the game go viral. And basically it made kind of us go viral, and therefore the game went viral.
Okay. Oh. Oh my god.
This is 30,000. 30,000 Dollar.
Oh my god!
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Ey, du hast es geschafft!
Wow.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
And so then after that, here is where it happened essentially. Like this was normal, right? Really good, very happy about this. This was 200 players, a little bit more than 200 players. And then here it went viral. It started popping off.
Okay, I'm looking. Oh mein Gott.
45, das stimmt, 250?
Ja. Stop.
Wow, Berg, wow. Du hast es geschafft! Du hast es geschafft!
And so yeah, that's how we ultimately then reached 1,000 reviews, and I managed to do a screenshot. Very cool. And that's essentially the entire story of TanGTD. From start to finish. Kind of funny, huh? How this right here. Wait, how is this not playable? Oh yeah, because it's supposed to be this. How this right here. That was the first version, right? How this right here could turn into this over years. Same project. Same project, chat. Bruh. Was a long time, bro. Very long time. I'm happy we finally there. Looks the same to me. You forgot the crying lessons you attended with your wife? Well, my wife and I never went to couple therapy. We actually thought about it one time. Because obviously this was a very stressful time. But we managed to pull through and we got much closer together because of it. At some point I did realize that I can't keep making joke games or making this as a joke. I actually have to do something of value fast, or I'm going to lose all of the time that I have spent on this because I have to go back and get a job because we don't have any money to feed ourselves. At some point I realized that, and she was trying to tell me that for years, but I never really listened, right? I was like, oh, it's gonna be fine. I'm just gonna get Twitch partner. Oh, it's just gonna be fine. I'm going to get good YouTube money. And so we'll be able to pay for ourselves even if the game doesn't do well. All of this stuff, right? Like comparatively to the game, this is pennies now. And yeah, it saved us, essentially. 4 years told in 4 hours. Yeah, kinda, right? Yeah, true. Anyways, chat. W stream. W stream. So now I'll probably create another video on how to make an interesting tower defense game. If someone is interested. Basically incorporating the lessons I learned from this game into that video, much like the guy that made the video about the platforming game. Game to reveal. Well, I have not. Again, I have not done that yet. What I can tell you though is that if I do undo. In the new game, essentially, or not in the new game. In the web game looks currently like this, guys. I've been working off stream a little bit on getting the light to show properly on the trees, and that's what I have at the moment. Essentially, the trees now cast shadows, and some trees get darker if they are below you, right? And so you have this somewhat this graveyard keeper effect. But again, this renderer is still not done, and I spent most of my time dealing with this stupid DMCA issue. For those of you who want to know, there's a YouTube video on my channel explaining what happened. And yeah, then for the most time, I'm telling you guys, it was a very stressful break. The break sucked, let me tell you, okay? I was stressed out about my game. I was losing wish lists every day. I hated it. But yeah, this is currently what I have for the Anubis patch.